Welcome, everybody. My name is Ronnie Malley. I'm with Intercultural Music Production here in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. I also happen to be a member of the classical Middle Eastern ensemble, Diwan El-Han. Today, what we'll be presenting to you is a series of videos that are of a live performance that we have done of some classical Arabic pieces. And we are calling this presentation Tarab. We'll talk a little bit more about Tarab and what Tarab is and the pieces that we're going to be playing. But first and foremost, I'd love to welcome to the studio here my guest and fellow bandmate and artist on our roster at Intercultural Music Production, Mr. Hani Dahshan. Hani, how are you?
How do you do, Ronnie? Great to be
Alhamdulillah, doing very well, doing very well. Good to have you. Uh, so, what are we going to be presenting to these folks today? You want to talk a little bit about it?
here. We're gonna be presenting some good music.
Inshallah, some good
And,
stuff. So, Hani, you came to Chicago many, many years ago, and we created our group, Diwan Al Han. Uh, and maybe we can talk just really quick. Can you mention to people what does Diwan Al Han mean, and how is it a play on words?
okay, so first impression is Diwan Al-Han. Al-Han, like when you hear it the first time, people think it's Al-Han, which is, tunes or melody. But it's not. It's actually Al-Han from Al-Hana, which is a very, very, very classic old word for uh, like a pub or a bar or a winery of some sort. But there's a different meaning to this. There is al-hana in terms of spiritual nourishment in the context of Sufism. Diwan is basically a collective or a repertoire of some sort. So the play on words here is that both words kind of rhyme. We don't want to focus on the poetic aspect exclusively in the repertoire. So basically, we're thinking of a repertoire of classic uh, songs, old songs, in that context of spiritual nourishment.
True, right? And that actually leads us right to the whole title of our segment today, which is Tarab.
Yeah.
And Tarab is more than just a genre of music. It's a concept, right? It's
Mhm.
literally achieving a state of ecstasy from listening to something or being moved by poetry and by music. And I'll be honest, this is the music when I was growing up here in Chicago that I was longing for and didn't even know I was longing for it. It's something almost embedded in our DNA. And I know that you're even younger than me. So for us to really embrace this tradition, this classical tradition of what we call art music from the Middle East, it's a very important thing because it really focuses and showcases the culture that is deep and rich in the Middle East, especially when we relate to Egypt and Syria and its influence and influenced by Andalusia and the entire Islamic reign on the Iberian Peninsula at that time, where many of these poems and poetic forms actually arise. But that's enough of us talking right now. Why don't we actually set up the first piece that we're going to be playing for everybody so that they kind of know what it is? Do you want to start, Hani?
Yes, so we're going to start out with a sama'i. It is basically a composition from Maqam Rust, composed by a 19th century Ottoman composer, Kamani Tatyos Effendi. He is actually Armenian, and he was a prolific composer, and he was a multi-instrumentalist, and he played violin and qanun. His full name is Incherjian.
Yeah,
How do
Tatios
you say
Sergian, yes.
Incherjian? He's of Armenian descent, and he was born in Istanbul. And Sama'i Rast is like one of the most famous pieces, because um, that particular sama'i is almost always used as an introduction to any medley on that maqam, on maqam rast.
And maqam, for those who are watching that don't know, maqamat, plural, are musical modes or scales that we use as part of the music theory of the Middle East. And so, well, without further ado, why don't I go ahead and let's show our video.
Look no further. Go ahead,
Yalla.
enjoy.
All right. There's a little quick list of some of the folks that were joining us there. And going to put myself back in here for you. Hey, everybody. So that was Samai Rast. Why don't you join us again, Hani?
All right.
Um,
Hope you all liked it.
yeah, I think that was one of the first pieces that we kind of came together and worked out. And part of the reason we chose that piece is not only because it's, you know, a wonderful piece, obviously, but also because it fit within the wasla, or the medley of songs that we would play together. And we would open with that, and then after that we'd turn it into what, like a 15-20 minute wasla, with songs that all fit within the same maqam. I can't overstate enough the importance of understanding that this is a music theory system that existed prior to what we understand today as Western music theory, in many ways, at least new Western music theory. And in fact, it really informed a lot of that. I saw some folks pointing out things in the chat. Just because we mentioned names of regions, somebody thought that we were being nationalists, and it really wasn't about that. What's important to understand is that in the Middle East, in North Africa, and when I say the Middle East, I mean Arabic speaking countries and Turkey and Iran as well. What we're saying is that ultimately all of these regions share a lot of commonalities, and indeed the approach to music and the music itself. This music theory is not Arab only. It's also used by people in Turkey. It is called maqam music, and in essence it's called sanat music, art music there, as we call it the same. Even if you go all the way to the Xinjiang province of China, the Western Chinese province, where many of the Uyghurs are from, they also use maqam as part of their music theory system. But, uh, you know, maybe this is a good segue too. The reason maqam has such a far reach really came with the spread of Islam. It's not to say that maqam is inherently an Islamic music, but with the spread of the Arabic language and with the spread of Islam also came the spread of maqam, which is why it reached all the way to China. That's probably a good segue to set up our next piece, Hani. And this next piece is called Ya Medad. You want to explain to us a little bit about what that is?
Before I do, Ronnie, just to point something out about the whole nationalism. That was my dear friend Zainab. She's an Arab woman studying Ottoman studies in Turkey,
Oh, wow.
and she's a novelty in Istanbul right now. She's a rarity, so she probably knows what she's talking about. But
Absolutely, absolutely.
her point was that basically because um, it's more about there's a shared, like you mentioned. I mean, there's a shared um, terminology here between Persia, Turkey, and the Arab world. We share a lot of names. We share a lot of the theory, and it's all just cross culture. You know, sometimes we always try to claim each other's names and each other's property, but in the end, um, it's just a matter of style. You know, that's all it is. It all comes down to a matter of style, and and you know, the shawarma that's made in Turkey is different than the shawarma that's made in Lebanon.
You mean
Or
doner kebab?
yeah, or you know, they all just have different. They all make it differently. You know.
I hear you. You know, believe me, I'm all about finding our similarities and sharing and celebrating in any differences that we have. You know, it's kind of like America and Canada. You really can't tell who's who until they start speaking with the subtleties of the accents. But so many American actors are actually Canadian, you know, or Australian with really good American accents. So, Hani, why don't you set up this next
Yeah.
piece for us? Yeah, Medad.
So this is our signature piece. Of course, this doesn't belong to us. This is actually from a movie called Vengo. It is basically a Sufi piece by Ahmed Touni. He is a Nubian Sufi singer. He passed away, and this was from a scene from that movie where there's a flamenco ensemble playing with Ahmed Tooni's ensemble, and they're basically playing together. It's this really, really, really organic fusion of you can call it Sufi flamenco, if you will, and Yamadad. Madad basically means it's a very common spiritual term that means to extend your your prayer through your voice, through your calling, and this is we sort of managed to Tarabize that little piece.
Indeed.
So yeah,
It
that's
is.
what that.
It's also a Sufi concept because there is, there are other pieces that we've done that we sang that were like poems that would say "Ya Madad Allah" or "Ya Madad Ya Rasul Allah." Madad is also just literally an Arabic word that means to extend, mid as well. But this piece, as Hani pointed out too, was inspired by a performance that we saw by the famous Sufi munshid from Egypt, Ahmed al-Tuni. And if you haven't heard his voice, it's amazing. It's entrancing. It's rapture. Uh, and so, well, without and who else do we see in this though? Yahani. Maybe before people become very surprised, because we had a good friend of ours who joined us on this as well.
Yes, our
It,
very dear friend Phaedra Darwish. She will
and,
be giving us a little whirling dervish.
and it's in
Uh,
the vein of the film too. What we saw when they presented these things, the film was kind of talking about the migration of the Roma people, and how some purport that they went also through Egypt as well. And this is something meant to emulate that encounter between the flamenco and between the uh, Egyptian style. So without further ado, here we go. Let's present Medad.
I hope you like me with my mustache.
I was going to say something was different, Yahani. Yalla.
Look no further.
رنيت وحدك يابا
All right. I do want to add real quick. I'm letting the credits go by so you can see who's in this and who some of our guests were as well. But also because uh, Hani Dehshan was the very gifted, not only musician, but also the video editor of everything that we did here, and even edited the sound on some of this. Usually, I'll take on the role of audio, and Hani would do video, but this time around, he seemed a little bit bored. And Hani, you are not here in Chicago right now. You're actually in Jordan.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, so this is
We've been
pretty
doing this
amazing.
virtually. Yeah, we've been doing this virtually.
You know, when the pandemic started, last year, we were all just like, all right, well, life as we know it now is over. We're not playing or performing anywhere. But little by little, people kind of came together and did it. And I love that there's a saying in both cultures, Arabic and English, that they say necessity is the mother of invention. Al-haja al-ikhtira'. And it really is, right? Because it forced us to come together and start doing all of this stuff. So
Or maybe not. Necessity is the mother of invention. Departure is the mother of invention. Because we did this. We did this. I mean, we shot this just like 2 days before I left.
That's true. This was all done like maybe 2 days before you went to Jordan. And I guess it's just a testament to how, technology can be something that we feel sometimes enslaves us, but it also feels like it's sometimes something that can free us too. Because now everybody, I mean, me, I never thought in a million years last year, if you told me before the pandemic that I'd be sitting here broadcasting a live stream video of us that's going around the world right now, you and Jordan and us here, I would have never believed it. But what can I say? That it's just a testament to what we can do and how resilient we are as people. Hani, this next song, in some ways, I feel doesn't even need an introduction from how famous this song is.
It's the national anthem.
It really kind of is like the national anthem of almost of the 20th century in some ways too, right? The next piece is called Ya Shadi al-Alhan. What's a loose translation of that, Hani? Ya Shadi al-Alhan.
What an embarrassing question.
Oh no, well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I mean, I've always Alhan meaning compositions, very similar to how our word is, right? But
Yeah.
it's kind of like singer of melodies or
Shadi. Shadi comes from a shedu, which is a very classical, also a very, very, very old classical Arabic word for singer.
singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the form of this song too, because this is it's written by the Egyptian composer Sayyid Darwish. And sometimes I've heard also conflicting stories that Sayyid Darwish wrote it with another very famous composer from Syria who wrote a lot of the early 20th century music that we still play today, that we consider part of the Andalusian poetic repertoire known as Muwashahat. And that composer was Omar al-Batsh, exactly, Omar al-Batsh. And he, I know, had a tremendous influence on people like Sayyid Darwish as well, because Sayyid Darwish left Egypt and lived in Damascus and in Syria for many years. And he wrote plays that bordered on, I don't want to say sedition, but calling out government and calling out society's woes. And but Sayyid Darwish was probably one of the more prolific composers of the early 20th century that wrote in folk tradition, but also wrote in the classical tradition. And we would call, often people called him the godfather or the father of modern Arabic classical music. Would you agree with that, Hani?
Yeah, even if you hear Amr Diab's Habibi Wala Ala Balu, Habibi Wala Ala Balu, it's a very Sayyid Darwish composition.
Yeah,
it
right.
almost feels like it's a Sayyid Darwish
It's almost like Ahudalli Sarwa.
For lack of a better example, Amr Diab. But
Yeah.
but I'm not really sure if Sayyid Darwish and Omar al-Batsh ever met in person. But I'm pretty sure they did cross paths and they did coexist in the same time period, because Omar al-Batsh is the Halabi equivalent of Sayyid Darwish in Egypt.
Exactly.
So basically, what happened was that Sayyid Darwish, he spent, I think, 4 to 6 years in Aleppo, which is also the equivalent of the time you spent studying at a conservatory. And he spent that time in Aleppo because he wanted to learn the muwashahat in Halab. And as a result, he came up with Shadi al-Alhan. So
Beautiful.
Shadi al-Alhan was like a summary of his time in Aleppo.
And just really quick too for our listeners to understand, when we say Aleppo, Aleppo carries a weight with it in the Middle East. It's like saying New York or New Orleans. For New Orleans might
I
even.
prefer New Orleans, yeah,
I would say New Orleans first
or probably
because
even Nashville.
what's that?
Probably even Nashville.
Or Nashville, right? Hubs of musical culture that influence the entire world, and that is what Aleppo, Halab is. So much that this body of work and repertoire, it didn't just come from a vacuum. They're taking poems that were written in Andalusia from anywhere between the 9th to the 15th century and reworking them with new words. Just a testament to the longevity of the Arabic language and how deep it truly is. So would you say that this is kind of like the a muwashah? Wouldn't you say? It's
It
kind
is.
of written in that poetic form.
Yes,
So
it's
uh,
basically it's a Umar, it's a pre Umar al Butch style muwashah. Now there's pre and post Umar al Butch style muwashah. There is the pre, which is where the madhab or the main verse repeats itself
the
without
refrain.
any variation.
Oh,
But
okay.
post Umar al Butch, when Umar al Butch came along, when he came around, he added that bridge, that third khana that has a completely different melody, where the first half has a different melody and the second half completes, it sort of repeats itself. Yashad al-Alhan is a very, very uh, standard type of muwashah. I think this is why I don't think Sayyid Darwish and Umar al-Butch ever met.
Well, here's why I say that, and I'll send you the article. Yesterday, when I was just searching around, and it never even occurred to me that they might have even existed at the same time. And then I see an article written in Arabic, of course, by a Syrian ethnomusicologist, published in a Arabic journal, and he was talking about how some people purported that Amr al-Batsh wrote the first khana or the first part of the song, and
Really?
that yeah, I'll send you the article. It's very interesting. We're always picking out these little things, and perhaps this just exemplifies more of the need for ethnomusicological work in the Middle East and more journals, really, to be written by the people who really understand the idiom of that region, because it's a great way for us to commit to ethnography of our region and really. Uh, I look at it almost like putting gold coins in a treasure chest for yourself when you unearth these like little tiny bits of culture. I know I learned a tremendous amount from you and gathered a bunch of resources as well, and very grateful for that. And I'm sure that as we share this with everybody else, our mission as Diwan al-Han has always been to elevate the status of Middle Eastern classical and art music, so that not only can we learn all to appreciate it, especially if we're from the Middle East, but also because it is on par with other classical musics of the world. So when people say classical music, I want them to not always have to revert to Western classical music and think Beethoven or Mozart. I want them to think Said Darwish, Omar al-Batsh, Muhammad Othman, some of our great composers out there. So, Faddal.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Heterophony, not polyphony. Um, yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'll put
Uh,
that in the Facebook comments so people kind of know what we're talking about. What are we talking about with that?
that was supposed to be the name of the event, by the way. Anyway. um, yeah. Part of the inspiration for Diwan al-Han was the song, by the way, because the song mentions al-Han in its
Mhm.
proper sense.
Yeah,
The
when
proper.
we got together, the first things we started to play together were Qudud Halabiya, a collection of repertoire from Aleppo, Syria. And this definitely is always part of the repertoire. This is the song, basically. I'll just put it this way in simple terms. This is the song that when we play it, the whole room goes crazy and starts to sing it along with us.
Yeah.
If you
Even
feel
the night player stops playing now. He starts singing. Remember, that's what happened the first time we ever sang that song.
I remember. So if you feel so inclined to sing along, please do so. Let it all go if you know this song. But without further ado, I'm going to present to you Yashad al-Alhan.
يا شادي الألحان سمعنا رنة العيدان يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لا رنة العيدان وسمعنا واطرب من في الحال حسنا من ندمان يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لا من زين ندمان هات يا فنان هات اسمعنا نغمة الكردان يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لا نغمة الكردان واسمعنا يا لا
All right, that was just a little short version for you all to check it out. But that song was made very famous by the amazing, legendary singer from Syria, Mr. Sabah Fakhri. And if you don't know, now you know. And I would definitely highly recommend checking out Sabah Fakhri if you have a moment. He was one of those people that I grew up listening to, and just that cassette tape, and yes, I said cassette, never left my car stereo. I must have listened to his hafla in Paris over 1,000 times, and it never gets old. And Henny, I know you have an anecdote about actually singing with Sabah Fakhri and knowing his son in Syria. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You want to tell us a little bit about that? What was that like? I mean, is that what really kind of sparked you wanting to learn all of these songs? Is that what kind of inspired you to do so?
Well, I was invited by Sabah Fakhri's son, Anas, to basically live and work in Lebanon and basically learn the trade and learn to perform and pretty much just start small and just watch and observe, and of course in the presence of the big man Sabah Fakhri himself. He used to attend those concerts most of the times. Unfortunately, it happened in the wrong time because it was like the beginning of the crises in Syria, and I mean I was hoping to do this in Aleppo in Syria, but it was a time where working musicians from Aleppo especially the ones who were living in Aleppo. They relocated, they left, they fled, and they all started working in Lebanon at the time. And I decided to, hop onto that ship and, just see what it's like. And it was a bittersweet experience because this is a rough business. This is it's a very rough business, and um, singing in front of a legend and performing in front of a legend. I mean,
Could be very intimidating.
it's one of the most intimidating things that can ever. Just a simple glance at you, the singer, even if you're sitting in the back, just a backing vocal. If he looks at you, I mean, I remember we were singing at this restaurant, and they were singing an Kulthum song that I didn't know, and I was, sitting in the back, backing vocals, and he was sitting at the front, in the audience, and he was it was like he was directing us, he was conducting us. It was like we were examining for, the artists union in Syria evaluation examination, to be a member of the union.
Wow.
So he was basically just, cueing us, and he looked at us and he looked at me, and I just had to hide behind the guy in front of me, like I had to hide, like I'm not here. I don't.
Oh my goodness.
A simple look. It's just really intimidating, but
Well, we've all been there, I'm sure. Yes.
yeah. But
But
it was a very fruitful experience. I learned a lot. If I was to get into details, it's a long, long story.
sure, I know you've shared many of them with me too, and I'm very grateful for that. And what an experience! I mean, you were with a living legend, and in fact, Sabah Fakhri probably sang all, if not maybe not Ya Madad in this version, but he's probably sung many of these, all of these songs before,
Yeah.
including the one that we're about to present right now, which is actually the
Yes.
final piece of our program today, which is the Melal Cassette. Melal Cassette. Hani, do you want to set this one up for us?
Yes. Metal cassette
Fill the
is
cups,
yes. Fill the cups, the goblets.
the
This is
goblets.
probably one of the most difficult muashahat for a vocalist, rhythmically and vocally, because this is one of the muashahat where the singer has to deliberately show us what he's made of, or she. There are a couple of verses in this muashah where the singer has to literally just sing his or her heart out. And I remember singing this muashah in front of Sabah Fakhri. Like I was sitting across the table from me. And he started singing it on his own. There were a lot of people sitting. And he just started, "Malalika." I got all excited and I started singing it with him. And he was like, okay, you go ahead. All right. We got to that part where I had to show him what I was made of. And I stopped singing. Not because I can't, but because, out of respect.
Sure, sure. I get it.
Out of respect, you have to let the big man do his thing. Out of respect, because there were a lot of people sitting around. So yeah, and this was composed by Mullah Uthman,
Muhammad Uthman, yes.
Ahmed Uthman.
Yes.
It is basically one of those very heavy, very, very heavy type of long muashah where you have to be very attentive and sort of analytical in order to, to make sure that it hits the spot.
That's a really good way to put it, because I mean that brings us right back to our whole program today of Tarab. You know, the purpose, this is all very much listening music, even though it does move people to get up and dance sometimes and to move. Obviously we had choreography on a couple of our pieces, but it's also very heavy listening music, because something that's inseparable from Arab music in general is the language, Arabic. And some people would really go as far as to say that the language is what dictates the music as opposed to the other way around. Because the poetry was written before the composition, and it helped to dictate the meter, it's a very intricate part of the Middle Eastern music and the maqam tradition in general. But so Tarab itself, hopefully نطربكم اليوم, hopefully that we can actually offer you some of that too, some of that rapture, that ecstasy. The closest word I've ever found to this in a musical context might be these are like rhapsodies. Tarab is like a rhapsody almost. It's this rapture that takes you over. And I'm sure we've all felt that in some way or shape or form when listening to something that moves us, regardless of what style of music it is. But Tarab in the Middle Eastern context, it has a very special place. So this is, without further ado, Malal Kasat by Diwan Al-Han.
Aman
That was the last piece that we played that evening. And that was I just want to give a quick shout out too. That was filmed at the Music Garage in Chicago, which is a wonderful little place there that has rehearsal halls and they have showcase rooms and whatnot. And we've been very fortunate that we have access to some of the great resources here in Chicago. Um, so that does conclude our program for today of this presentation of music from Diwan Al Han. I'd
Mike,
like to Mike. Well, a wonderful job, Henny. Mashallah. I'm so glad that you decided to come to Chicago. And when was it? About 2018, 2017 that we kind of got together.
yeah, 2017.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it was 2017. Yeah, the
I
first time.
remember having my father, my brother here, and our Nay player Nayef, and we were doing a lot of things, and just we wanted to do this music, but it relies so much on a vocalist because it's so poetry driven. And when you came, it was like it was really a godsend in some ways because it was exactly what we were looking for, to keep this poetry alive and to cultivate something that we can rehearse and practice and play and give back to our community to see that we have a lot more to offer in our culture than just shabby music, which is folk music or pop music. We can stay on just for a few minutes longer. I don't know if Hanny, if you have any closing words or anything, but if anybody has any questions for us about anything that you saw too, I want to take a moment also to say now too, thank you so much for joining us today on the program. But
Special shout out to Phaedra.
Phaedra
Thank you
Darwish,
so much. Yes, Phaedra, thank you so much. She did a wonderful, magnificent job.
yes, and to Imad Rushdie, uh,
Yes.
exceptional violinist. We're very fortunate also to have him now here in Chicago as well. He came to us from Detroit, where he performed and still performs with the National Arab Orchestra out there. So there's a lot happening now in the past few years in the classical Arab world, in the art music world, and a lot of orchestras popping out everywhere around. So I think we have a revival coming up here.
Yep. Yep. And this is just the beginning.
Inshallah,
This
inshallah,
is
as they
just
say.
the
Hani, do you have any final words for anybody?
I'd just like to thank everybody who stopped by. Thank you for stopping by, and I'm gonna see you again soon.
Inshallah, and thank you also to for joining us all the way from Jordan.
And
Uh,
thank you guys for existing.
yeah, alhamdulillah for everything. Well, if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and put them up in the chat. If you don't, go ahead and you can always email us. Intercultural Music is a company here in Chicago. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe to Intercultural Music Production on YouTube and like us on Facebook. It will help us to generate and create more things like this, music and songs, and there's a lot more to come too. God willing, when you come back, Hanny, we'll be putting together maybe some more stuff as well. Uh, and I would be remiss if I didn't also wish everybody in a couple of days starts the holy month of Ramadan. I definitely would like to wish everybody a happy Ramadan, a good fast to everyone as well, those who celebrate and practice. And well, till next time, we'll hope to see you soon. And we wish you adieu. Shukran jazilan.
Thank
Ma'assalam.
you. Goodbye.